Get him up here with us this morning. Jeff Nordeen joins us from Accuweather. Our visit this morning presented by Marcus and Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row in the Best of Indiana County contest. Visit them online at marcusandmack.com. Jeff sitting there with, a big glass of lemonade, feet up on the desk saying, "See, I told you so." Jeff, good morning.
Morning. How are you doing in the heat?
Wonderful. I love this stuff. This is my kind of weather, but I'm one of the few because I know that for a lot of people, this is a little bit too much, isn't it?
Yeah, for some people it is. For the people who came from the southern states, whether it's Florida or Texas, this is like a normal day. And in fact, excuse me, I had a bug fly in my face there. Sorry about that. So speaking of hot temperatures. Right now, we're pretty much sitting where South Texas is at, in the 70s this morning, 80s even in some spots. That's what it is down south right now. We don't need that.
Oh, no. Well, yeah, I talk a lot to folks down in Dallas. We get a good group of guests that come on with us from Dallas on a number of different topics, and they're always saying how envious they are of our weather here. And it doesn't matter where you live, I guess. Somebody else has better weather somewhere, and that's the way that we think about things like that. But I talked with my Amish friend over the weekend. We were at the greenhouse, and he said, well, this is the way that he was taught by one of his old Amish friends. He said that the day before summer, the day summer begins, the day after. The day before is what your weather's going to be like in July. What your weather is like on summer's first day is what your weather is going to be like for the month of August. And then the day after is what September is going to be like. You probably approach it a little more scientifically than that, though, don't you?
A little more scientifically, yes. Lore and, all the, they're not fairy tales, but what's the term I'm looking for? Help me out here.
Folk tales.
Yeah. All of that is nice to know, but, just like groundhog, he's only a groundhog. He's not going to predict winter or the lack thereof. He's just going to see a shadow and go, well, there's a shadow,
He leaves it to us to do the interpreting.
Exactly. So, yeah, in terms of the heat, let's kind of just dive right on in because, we have record-breaking temperatures. I mean, starting out today, 94 is the high that we're going to be going for, and 91 was set in 1966. Tomorrow's record high was 90 in the same year, and we're going to get to 97. So, I mean, it's just going to be hot and also humid. Got to factor that in. We have the heat advisory lasting through Wednesday, by the way. Accuweather real feels today, 103, and then the peak for tomorrow is 104. Now you asked me what's the difference between 103 and 104. Let's be honest, there is none.
Yeah, it's hot.
It's humid.
Yeah. Tell me about the concept of a heat dome. Is that what we're experiencing right now?
Yeah. So a heat dome, basically, in a long story short, is a large area of high pressure, and we have that in two places, actually. We have the high currently situated over 5 states. We got North Carolina, Tennessee, West Virginia, and also Kentucky. That's where that heat dome is centralized. The other dome of high pressure is over Idaho and Montana, which, by the way, you won't believe me when I tell you this, but they saw 2 feet of snow.
When?
Just recently. It's like, wait a second. You can't tell me it's snowing in June anywhere in the U.S. That just doesn't make sense, except for maybe Alaska and the higher elevations.
Well, we always tease our friends to the east and say, and Ebensburg.
And yeah, that's true.
There's something goes on in Ebensburg. We can't figure that part out. But yeah.
Right. No, even I can't. And I've done weather for 5 years.
Well, what does it portend for the summer? Does this have anything to do with what it's going to be like in July and August?
It can. It can definitely, skew the numbers quite a bit in terms of our, what we look at for, historical average and the departure from the historical average as I continuously scroll here for those numbers. It can be, but it is also one of those things where it's just an extreme. These extreme events will happen. but it doesn't necessarily mean the entire summer is expected to be. And I finally got there. It only took me so long. Looking at August, we could be about a degree or two higher than the historical average. And then going forward to September, kind of the same thing. Most of the country for July through September, the departure from the historical averages are above. The only spots that are below right now is parts of Arizona, southeastern Utah, and southwestern Colorado. So that's the one spot from now through September, where we have a potential to be below the historical average.
Yeah. Now, when we think about the last couple of summers, they've been really, really dry, drought level dry in some areas, and certainly our area has experienced that dryness as well. Is that going to be the new norm for basically all of Western Pennsylvania?
Doesn't look like it this time of year, or actually for this summer, in fact. So from July through September, our precipitation, again, departures from the historical averages is going to be on the positive side. So about 25 to 50% more wetter than years past. And, we use a running average. I don't remember what year we go back to. I want to say it's like beginning of record, which is usually early 1900s, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
So the trend is good for precipitation. And in fact, the drought monitor is completely clear for much of the Northeast states, except for pockets of drought in Maryland and parts of Jersey, New York City.
Yeah. That's good news. Let's look at this week's forecast as an example, because Accuweather's talking about, and other computer models are talking about, a lot of sunshine this week, temperatures in the 90s basically every day. There's one or two models, though, that have rain moving into the area Wednesday and sticking through the area through Saturday at least, and temperatures moderating down to the lower to the mid-80s. That's a big difference when you consider heat that is absolutely melting you, and this other stuff where maybe it's wetter.
Yeah. So what the official forecast is calling for some spotty thunderstorms tomorrow, and those are very spotty. Like the one model I just looked at, it really wasn't even there, but the other one did have it. So we wanted to make sure we covered our bases. Wednesday on, there's going to be these daily opportunities for some thunder showers. And the heaviest, steadiest is coming Thursday and into Friday, where we could get alone from those 2 days about a half an inch of rainfall, which for this time of year, I didn't unfortunately pull up the amount that we have so far. We're at 5 inches. So being at 5 inches is already over for the entire month of June, which is about 4.8. So getting more isn't bad. We just don't want to get too much, because then the soil can get, very saturated, and you start to have flooding or, other issues with too much rain.
Yeah, well, my garden is still wet. Even with all of this heat that we've had in recent days, I still have not been able to get into my garden and do everything that I wanted to get done. I've still got some planting to do. And those sorts of things we talk about with our extension agent, Bob Pollock, that it's not going to have a long-term effect on the performance of our gardens. But when you have a summer such as the one that we're set up to have, and especially one that is so hot so early here in the month of June, what are the ramifications in terms of climate for Western Pennsylvania through the end of the summer?
Well, yeah, so as I mentioned, through the end of summer, I mean, with the temperature running on average about a degree or two above normal, it just means that, taking all the days from now through September will trend 1 to 2 above, meaning we could have some days where we're below average and we have days right at average. So it's good news, I guess, in the long, looking at the long range, because when we start to talk about, areas like the Northwest right now, where we're going to predict about 4 or even higher, more degrees above the historical averages, that leads to change. But when you're only looking at a degree or two over a 3-month period, that's not too big of a change. It's definitely something we want to keep on our, radar for, future years and see how it changes every year.
Yeah. All right.
But in terms of if you're asking specifically for gardening questions or for, agricultural needs, it is something to be on the lookout for. with the lack of rain, or at least for now, we've been dry and hot and sunny. You definitely need to step up your, watering. You need to turn on the sprinklers a little bit more to keep your grass green. You need to get out there and water your plants so that they don't literally dry out because of this extreme heat.
Yeah.
But once we get back to normals and once we start getting more rain, it should, the garden will figure itself out.
Yeah, nature has a way of doing that. All right.
It does.
Final question for Jeff Nordeen. More fun being a meteorologist in the heat of summer or in the cold of winter?
Boy, that's a good one, especially since I live in Minnesota. Boy, I don't know. I think because I'm actually much better at severe weather forecasting, I would choose summer.
There you go.
I hate to admit this, and believe me, quote me as much as you want, I am not great at winter forecasting. It's very tough because you get all the wintry precipitation types. You get, sleet, freezing rain, snow, wet snow, dry snow. It's like all these things, and each area, especially with higher elevations, can have vastly different amounts. Whereas when you look at a severe thunderstorm push through, it's going to be wet for everybody, and it's going to be heavy for everybody.
Yeah, so a little bit more intricate in the winter times.
Right. And also, I don't like winter, and yet I live in a state that's known for winter, so that's also something I need to consider.
You've told us that before, and I say it around here, too. People, they talk about the weather, and everybody, no matter where they live, seems to have some complaint with the weather, and I always say, we choose to live here.
We do. It's like, why? So we can complain about it, so we have something to talk about.
There you go. Hey, Jeff, it's been fun as usual with you. Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
It really is always a good pleasure. You have a good one, and stay cool.
Jeff Nordeen with us from Accuweather, and there you go. That's the weather picture for us.